Hey everybody, how are you? Welcome back to Success Secrets Revealed. And today we have an amazing guest with us, Megan Di Martino. And what I want to tell you, right, is a crazy statistic, but only 4% of women-owned businesses that were founded by a woman and run by a woman, a female, go on to make $1 million. Megan has actually done it twice. So if we have 4%, so if you, I don't know, that must put her at like 0.2% of, being up there in terms of success in business. So for any female business owners, entrepreneurs, or anyone who wants to be, you really need to listen and learn. But also for males like myself, I mean, for me, it's astronomical that, that statistic is even accurate, 4%. But so whatever she has done to achieve success, I want to know, because I want to emulate it too, because you're talking about staggering statistics here. So she's literally in like the 99.5% of female business owners. So I want to listen and learn. Before we get to that, I want to talk to you a little bit about how this show, Success Secrets Revealed, came about. I have a radio show every week, once a week, called Internet Marketing and Business Solutions with Ronald Couming. We have a reach of approximately 1.7 million. Unfortunately, because of COVID, they're not manning the station. So they're running reruns. So they're just taking the tapes from older shows and they're running reruns after the first, 6 to 10, those are live. But after that, everybody else is reruns. So I've been doing it for 4 years, and those interviews are with, leaders and great people as well. With what's going on in the world today, I wanted to pivot, and I wanted to give people accurate information on how to navigate what's going on in the world. So I'm doing these live streams, and then I'm stripping out the audio, sending it to the radio station. So it will play in front of the 1.7 million at some point. All those listeners will get to hear the benefits of this. But I wanted to do the lives because it gave current information. Plus, it's also video, right? And everything is going video nowadays. So it's great to have all these up on our social media channels. So it's just a pure win-win for everybody. I want to let you know that none of our guests get paid to be on the show, nor do they pay to be on the show. I don't get paid to do the show. Everybody's here just to give back, to listen, to learn, cross-promote, whatever we can do to help the business owners and entrepreneurs that listen live or on the replays. We do have one sponsor, and that's my company, RCS Online Solutions, and we basically help business owners and entrepreneurs, whatever their product, service, and solution is, we get you in front of your target audience. You can have, they've often said, as Don Green just spoke about, you can have the best mousetrap in the world, but if people don't know about it, they can't consider it, and they certainly can't hire it. So with our services, we get you in front of the people who need your services. If you're coming up on the first page for your name or your company's name, I'm here to tell you, so what? It doesn't matter. You're the only one with your name or the company's name, right? So, but people aren't searching for you that way. If they know those, they're calling you. What they're searching for is a solution, product, or service. So that's what they're typing in. That's what you need to come up on the first pages of the search engines for. And that's what we help you with. So you can contact me at any time, Ron at RCS Online Solutions, and we'll give you a free website analysis or consultation. But let's get to the good stuff right now, okay? We just, we got the sponsor, so we got to appease them. So Megan Di Martino. Again, she started her business, and she's been in beauty and fashion in New York in the 70s. And I can just imagine what life was like in the 70s in New York. I remember watching Telly Savalas and stuff, right? But it was a different world. And again, we had a woman who was starting a business, and that statistic that I gave you earlier, only 4% of women own businesses go on to make $1 million, and she's done it twice. So we're going to bring her on now. Her bio is extremely impressive, but I'd rather you hear it from her, and we just have it go straight. But it will be written in the description of this video as well. Megan, please, how are you? Here's a clap track.
I'm so blessed to be here, Ron. Thank you so much for inviting me. Really.
Oh, thank you, man. You're amazing. I mean, your history is amazing. That's why I didn't want to read it. I wanted people to hear it and feel it, because it's totally different when it comes from the person, right? And so please tell us a little bit more about you. And that statistic that women-owned businesses, only 4%. I mean, to me, that's staggering. If you had told me 30%, 20%, even that would have blew my mind. But 4, that's crazy. That something has to change. I know Sharon Lechter, who's going to be on later, she does a lot of work, and I know you've worked with her as well. She does a lot of work with women, and she has that Think and Grow Rich for Women book as well that she's written. So hopefully there's going to be some inroads, because that needs to change. But anyone who has beaten the odds, staggeringly, like you have in business success, please, let's hear a little bit. Tell us a little bit about, how you started, your history, and then, go into the business and tell us more about you.
Okay. Well, first, I would like to not only thank you, Ron, but also when you asked me to be on today, you made a mention in you messaged me, and I thought you were kidding, when you said, could you be on today? Sharon Lechter cannot make it today. And I said, yes, that would work well. And then when I saw your post that it was going to be with Don Green, Greg Reed, John Shin, and myself, and I'm between Don Green and Greg Reed, I said, oh my goodness, here are the pillars of Napoleon Hill's work, and Think and Grow Rich, and all of his other just amazing pieces of work. And I just said to myself, what is this really saying? And then I was really praying and meditating about it. And then last night, I watched a email that I had received of a replay of a piece that Greg Reed and Sharon Lechter did this past week, sharing about a mastermind program that they're putting together. And I had that aha moment of realizing why I'm here. And I'll share that in a minute.
Excellent.
But to get back to my story, so to speak, I basically am a New York girl. I grew up on Long Island, outside of Manhattan. My parents were both very creative people. My father was an entrepreneur himself. My father basically was a creator. And what I mean by that is his dad, my grandfather, who was an Italian immigrant from Italy, was a barber. And he started a barbershop and salon on Long Island after working in a hotel in New York City for many years, and moved his family out there. My dad observed his dad doing hair services such as perming, and a light bulb went off in my dad's head shortly after the war, and which he was in the Air Force, and was working for a large paper company, and said a product that he was selling for this paper company was wet strength tissue. And he said, I bet this would work for perming. So we cut it up in our basement on Long Island, brought it to salons in New York City, and it was 1/10 the cost of what they were using at that point, which was a non-woven material. Back when my grandfather was doing perming, it was a cloth material. So he started selling this wet strength tissue to salons, and us children, I was one of 4, were packing these end papers in our basement. So it was the beginning of my entrepreneurial spirit. As I said, I'm one of 4. And as my mom said, over many, many times over the years, I was more like my dad than any of the 4 children because of my creativity. I look at New York basically as my DNA, and also that fertilizer, just fertilizing that creativity. So I had no idea really, Ron, what I was going to do, but I did know that I was going to create. I went to college for fashion merchandising and worked in New York City in the fashion industry, initially at Lord Taylor in a buying training program. And then I went to Bloomingdale's and worked in the buying office of cosmetics. And in the mid-70s, they brought in a line from London called Biba, and it was featured actually in Freddie Mercury's movie, Freddie Mercury, Queen.
Yep.
His girlfriend, Mary, worked for Biba, And there's a scene in there where Freddie was in the store. Well, Biba herself was a very instrumental and pivotal person in the Carnaby Street era in the 60s in London. And so Bloomies put a program together with Biba and brought it into the store. But they did something very unique. They marketed in the junior department. So they asked me if, because of my age and my background, would I be interested in working as a manager of this Biba counter? I said, yes, of course. So I was trained by the makeup artist from the team from London. And, during that season, I had an epiphany and said, someday I'm going to create something like this. Now, that was basically glamour. What that means, Ron, and everyone listening, is, lipsticks and shadows and that type of thing, where skincare is corrective or feeding the skin. So I was trained in that glamour portion, but I said, someday I'm going to create. And so in the early 80s, I went to work for my family's business, my father, Ray Di Martino, the end paper king, because he wanted to add products to the beauty industry, which the product was just private label end wraps. And in the 70s, he developed dental and medical paper related products. And so it was a fabulous opportunity for me, because I was able to start from R&D, because he said, Megan, I have no idea what we should do. You go out and figure that out. So I was able to do R&D and package from that product research to the product to packaging, then to take it to market. But before I go on with that, Ron, I want to go back to another piece that really is the foundation of the 4 pillars of the Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill. Now, did I know that at the time? Absolutely not. But in 1976, I had a child, and I was living in Connecticut with my husband, who was working for IBM, and he worked in White Plains, which means it was about an hour away, and we had 1 car. We had just moved there. And it was a really challenging time in my life because I couldn't work. I didn't have a car. And so one day I played tennis to stay sane. And I was at the tennis courts, and this gal was doing a little mini Tupperware party. And I walked up to where she was and I said, what do you make doing this? And she said, oh, I'll have my manager call you. She called and came over to my home and shared that basically, how did you get started? But then she mentioned that managers like she received Ford LTD station wagons like the one in my driveway. I said to myself, I'm not interested in plastic bowls, far from glamour, far from Bloomies and Lord & Taylor and, New York City, but I want and need a car. So the dynamic of how one got that was really very realistic. So I said, I'll do this and I'll be a manager. And she looked at me like, I was from the moon. But from that moment, I started recruiting people to work with me in Tupperware. Now, the epiphany about Napoleon Hill and the 4 pillars is definitiveness of purpose. And here I'm 26, 27, and my unit was called the Megaphones. But when I say but, it was the purpose part is that I didn't just run out and try to sell. What I really tried to do is build a unit that was strong, and we basically created really what I was not in numbers of people in the unit.
Right. I love it. And you're right about the definitive of purpose. You wanted that car, and this was a way for you to get there. And you already declared the success by saying, I will be a manager. I mean, I'm sure that there are different levels when people first come in, associate, whatever it is. But you said, no, I'm going to be a manager. I need that car. What do I, where do I sign? And you made it happen. So I love it. And once again, you didn't really understand the 4 pillars because, you probably never read it, but you lived it. And it's just another example of how, you know, it's not that somebody reads these things, copies them, and then goes out and has successes. They, you know, these things actually work, whether you read that book or not. Exactly. But when you read that book and you associate with mentors and you listen to other people, it just helps you cut that learning curve. That's right. So I love it. And I love the history. I mean, you're talking about New York and glamour, and you know, Freddie Mercury's, you know, coming in, you know, his girlfriend Mary worked there in the 70s. So I mean, you're spanning decades.
Yes.
So yeah, please continue.
Well, the other piece about the definitive of purpose is that I recognized as I started to share that I built a strong unit, as it was called. And it was not about me being the star and selling more than anyone else in the unit, but it was building a strong team.
Nice. I love it.
Okay. And that was really one of my epiphanies that I received as a gift when I was very young, that it was about giving back, as Don was talking about in the segment. And it was about helping these gals. But I also took my time in recruiting. I didn't just grab anyone who had showed some interest. I vetted them, so to speak, that they really were interested in building themselves and building whatever they needed. It could have been money for their son's college, you know, whatever that was. I was there to help them to actualize that. So with that in hand, I went to work. Actually, why I stopped selling Tupperware and brought my beloved car back to the distributor was because I knew I needed to get divorced. And so I knew I needed to not just hide behind that and keep working. I needed to take care of me and my daughters and make that change. And so after I did that, I sold advertising space in New York City. And that was not a wise thing because of my two young daughters. I loved it. I worked for an advertising company, and you know, and I really, really enjoyed that, but it was not the right thing to do at that time. And my dad, as I said, kept calling me and said, why don't you come and join us? I want to add products to the Racing division, which were the private label NRAPs. So it had the name of the beauty distributor on it. And so my job, as I said earlier, was to figure out what the salon needed in reference to paper. It had to be paper. So I would go into salons and ask them, what did they need? What were they doing? And this is another time capsule piece. This was the beginning of the acrylic nail industry. And so I kept hearing from these owners or managers of these salons, and predominantly in New York, but some on Long Island, that these gals, they would say, are ruining our towels because they're going to the solar nail classes, that was creative nail, and building up the nail bed. Well, acrylic nails come from bonding teeth. That's all the original nail companies are from the dental world, just a little FYI. And so basically that powder and acrylic hardened and destroyed their toweling. So they basically kept saying, a towel. So I would go back to my dad, who was a genius in sourcing of material, and we found a non-woven material that was absorbent, lint-free, and we put together the original nail towel for the industry called the table towel. And I sold it to all of the nail companies, such as Creative Nail, OPI, and so forth as well, and private labeled for them, but also sold it under the brand for Racing. So I was able to learn about building businesses, Ron. It was a tremendous blessing, because how many people say, I'm going to start a business, but they have no earthly idea.
Right.
Earthly idea. So during that season, I was recruited by Alcon Laboratories, which is in Fort Worth, Texas. So this New York girl flew down to interview with Alcon Laboratories in Fort Worth, Texas. They had just acquired a small lab that made hair care products. Now, Alcon manufactures products for the ophthalmologist and the dermatologist. So they were venturing into waters that they did not know. And the products, though, were FDA approved, NDC coded, serious hair care products for the disease of dandruff and thinning hair, like Nioxin and Rogaine and those lines. But they wanted to expand the line and repackage and reposition. And hence, that's why they recruited me. And I flew down, met with them, and I was offered the job. I have 2 daughters, and one stayed in New York to finish her senior year. And then the other daughter, who was 11 at the time, had no choice. So she and I moved to Fort Worth, Texas.
Ma.
Exactly, Ron. Exactly. So off to an adventure. But regardless of Fort Worth, Texas, and personal, I took that job also for another reason. Remember what I said when I was working for Biba. Someday I'm going to create something like this.
Nice.
I didn't say, Ron, honestly, did not say, and I think this goes back to being a female, but I did not say, someday I'm going to start a business. I said, someday I'm going to create something like this.
Nice.
So I knew that working with Alcon, I was going to be surrounded by very sophisticated chemists that I could glean information from, because I'm not a chemist. I have a sales marketing background, but I'm not a chemist. So exactly what happened. I was able to really get to know the head chemist of Alcon and develop a relationship with Raymond Bollinger. And, I would just pick his brain, because remember this, well, not remember, but this was in 1987 to 91-ish. And there was no internet, Ron, what you do for your living. There was no website structure. There was no Surrey. There was no Google, nothing. And so during that season, we started doing a hair care line based on hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid today is one of the fundamental tour de force ingredients used in skincare products. We were developing products based on hyaluronic acid back in the 80s because, just another fun fact, hyaluronic acid initially was developed for eye surgery to keep the eye moist. So remember, Alcon Laboratories developed products for the ophthalmologist and the dermatologist. It holds 1,000 times its weight in water, very large molecule, hence very hydrating. Wow. So very, very fabulous ingredient. But it took 30 years for it to, or 25 years to really be used in skincare products that are done today. But we did a hairline based on hyaluronic acid called Hyaluron. And during that season of developing and designing that, I did a storyboard for a skincare line based on hyaluronic acid. I brought it to my boss, and he said, skincare doesn't sell. And that is, and the reason he said that is because it really wasn't a factor yet, because the baby boomer hadn't gotten old enough yet, and ingredients and science had not been created to make a difference. So therefore, it really hadn't happened yet. But I look at myself as kind of the bellwether of what people are interested in. And I call it result-oriented skincare. So I said to myself, when this man said, skincare does not sell, I said, I don't know if I'm going to be here forever. But I had a daughter in college and other responsibilities, so I certainly didn't just quit my job. But I knew that I wasn't going to be there long term. But what I did do is I started studying ingredients other than hyaluronic acid. And I came upon glycolic acid. Long story how that happened, but it was basically because I was inside that Fortune 500 company and was privy to information. And I went to Raymond Bollinger and I said, tell me about glycolic acid. And he started talking about alpha chains and beta chains. I said, whoa, 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 you're talking to me.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I guess I'd say exfoliation. And I said, well, where can I get more information? He goes, I don't know, the library. So what I started doing, though, was, now this is 1990, and I started calling labs around the United States, ones that I knew of, meaning that, again, there was no Google to Google skincare labs. And at that time, most said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And if they did, they said, we're not doing R&D yet. And finally, I did find a lab that was beginning to do R&D. And I met with them, and they happened to be in Dallas. And the reason they were in Dallas is Mary Kay and Beauty Control are in Dallas. And so therefore there are a lot of small boutique labs in Dallas.
Yep.
And so I still had a job, but I was putting this together, thinking about it and putting it together, so to speak. And then and again, this gets back to Napoleon Hill. I sold my home. I sold my beloved 1920s Spanish that I restored in Fort Worth, Texas, and sold my home. So burning desire to do my own thing. And I sold my home, and I put together my first brand called Glycolique. And I launched Glycolique in the summer of 1992. And I thought, I had enough capital and enough product. I had 1,000 pieces of each going into a distributor trade show that I had done for years and years with my two national jobs that I had worked for my family's business and also Alcon. And I hired manufacturers reps and had a booth, and I was off to the races. But I made a major mistake. And this would actually be a plague, if you want to, or it was the foundation of negativity, probably a better way to put it, a challenge, all of those dynamics of Glycolique. Glycolique shot off like a rocket because it worked. People see a difference very quickly. It was the foundation of what we know today, not only of result-oriented skincare, but the medical spa phenomenon that started in the mid-90s. I truly was a pioneer in result-oriented skincare, but the challenge was that I should have started with one region, start small and go big. The next pillar is to have a plan. I thought I had a plan. I thought I had a clear-cut plan, but I didn't have a mastermind. I was doing it all by myself. My dad, for instance, who was my champion, he actually said to me, "Don't do this. It's too risky." He didn't give me a penny. He said, "Come back to New York. You're very talented. Do not do this." But I had a burning desire.
Yep.
I thought I had a clear-cut plan. I knew the industry. I knew the distributors. I had a relationship with them. I had a relationship with all the leading manufacturers reps companies, the principal as well as their associates. And the beauty industry at that time was divided into 5 regions. And I should have started with, I was in Texas, I should have started with the Southwest and maybe the Midwest, but I didn't. I opened it up to the 5 regions. And at that trade show, I sold all 1,000 pieces, Ron.
Wow.
Horrible.
Because you didn't have any in storage.
No. Yeah. And also it was predicated on them, me doing their fall trade shows. So sure, Megan, yeah, I'll buy the XYZ number of cases of XYZ. You come and do the show and launch it. You've done this for years. You'll do it again. So guess what, Ron? This was August, and the shows were September and October. I didn't get paid until October or November. Wow. So bottom line, folks, is that definitiveness of purpose, that burning desire. Now the plan, I knew, but I had to, and this is something that everyone is thinking through right now, and this is what Sharon Lecter and Greg Reed were talking about last night, is I had to pivot. That means you get twisted around. It meant that I had to be fluid and think through and keep moving no matter what, and just keep moving. So I did factoring and I did other things, and did a few consulting projects on the side and different things that would keep my life afloat. But basically, then the 4th pillar is persistence. I knew, as without a doubt, without a doubt that I was doing what I was called to do in this life. Because during this season of the challenge, and there, no doubt, tremendous challenge, was that I was building a team. Remember Tupperware?
Yep.
Because people would come up to me at trade shows. Now, in the beginning, I started by myself, but as people purchased this product, I'm talking about people that worked in the industry, worker bees, as I call them, you know, whether they were a stylist. There weren't very many estheticians. Certainly in 1992, there were very, very few. And that's a whole other point. In the United States, there were very, very few people doing skincare. But people would buy these products. It was a small system. I believe in simple, safe, and synergistic. But that's a whole other.
Oh, I like it. The 3 S's: simple, safe, and synergistic.
These products, and you asked me earlier before we started, are these products for you? I say they're for anyone from 8 to 108 who has skin.
Right.
Okay.
I said I need to fight these lines. You know, 60 coming up pretty soon.
So, you know, for teens, fabulous. You know, prepubescent, we say 8 to 108, not really being facetious. So people would come up to me at trade shows and say, I love these products. Well, enthusiasm sells. And if they, and because I had opened up the 5 regions, I couldn't be everywhere all the time. So I would pay attention to who was speaking to me, and I would ask them, are you interested in doing some trade shows? And a lot of them said, oh, I have no idea. I've never done that. But you love these products. Well, I do. Well, I can train you. I can help you. And from there, I built an amazing team.
Nice. Because now they went to the shows and, you know, you duplicated. You learned. That's one thing about the Tupperware. One, you started a team. So you learned the value of both duplication, but also serving. You served the team. It wasn't about you. It was about serving the team, having them have success. And then by default, you had success.
Exactly, Ron.
Yeah. So there's a lot of great messages in this. And also you took that out to this here. You now just duplicated yourself with all those people, but you didn't delegate, because you know that's one whole thing, because then you're trusting that person, their level of skill, whatever it is, to do it. You duplicated yourself because you trained them. So whatever they did, they were doing as if it was you. So I love it when people duplicate. You know, when you delegate, that's one thing. Sometimes you have to delegate certain pick it up, put it down stuff, but the important stuff you have to duplicate yourself, and that's how you really grow and make a ton of money, but also keep the integrity of whatever you're doing alive.
That's right, Ron. Very, very well said. Very well said. I called it the A team and the B team because, again, because it was all over the United States, they're often weekends in the fall and the spring, because it's kind of emulated the fashion industry with, you know, the New York fall and spring show, that there would be shows every weekend in the fall and the spring. I couldn't be at everyone. And by this point, we were doing classrooms as well as a booth, because we were known as the education company, and that we were helping salons get into skincare.
Nice.
Just as I did with that towel years ago, with, you know, helping with the nail industry to grow. And so I had my A team, and many of the A team managers, as I called them, I still am in communication with. Many of them still are in business, and many still use these products. So it was a very exciting time, and it was my first $1 million business. And I grew that business almost to $2 million. But it was a situation where the next challenge was that somewhere in the mid, was probably approaching $1 million. I was so struggling, Ron. It was just financially. It was fabulous outside, but inside it was challenging, because it had just grown too quickly. And I then sold too much stock to a company that warehoused for me. Initially I started warehousing in my garage, but then as many entrepreneurs do, you know, Apple in the garage. Hello,
get basketball out of there. This will fit.
The car, forget about it. So But I very quickly, this friend of mine who managed he was the vice president of this medical supply business, offered to warehouse and ship, and I would just pay the UPS or FedEx, bill. And so that was a wonderful blessing. And so it kept growing and growing. So that company asked him, who is this person? What is this all about? So I did a presentation for them, and they invested into Glycolique. And unfortunately, I didn't have again, I'm going to say this throughout the thread. There are no accidents. Why you asked me, and I'm sandwiched between Don and Greg Reed.
Right.
But I sold too much stock, a majority stock holding to them. And they, so I just, again, I didn't say, someday I'm going to build a business. I said, someday I'm going to create something like this. So I was doing what I do best, which was to build it, to create, and to build a team, and to take it to market, and to continue to sustain that and to grow that. I was doing that very well, but internally it was very challenging. And so at some point, it was now over 1 million. And the lab that made the product kept approaching me, didn't approach them, approached me and asked me if I wanted to sell them this business, because they were shocked at the not only how quickly it grew, but the volume then of business that we were then doing.
I love
And
it.
and I said no at first, no. And then at that point, when I was with these folks, and it was not going well internally, it really had nothing to do with me. It had more to do with my friend and his relationship with the board. And so when the lab said, would you like to sell this? I was always talking to the comptroller, and he was a fabulous person. And so I said, I think you need to speak to this board. And so he did, and we ended up selling the business to this lab. And I was part of the deal. And so I had a 2-year contract with them and worked for them contractually, and then and continued to build it. And as I said, when I left them to start Novita, it was a little over 2 million. And I left because internally they had then been bought out by a Fortune 400 company out of Boston. Not going to name their name, but they had no earthly idea of what they were doing. They did not come from the industry, and they ultimately destroyed Glycolique. I
Wow.
could see the handwriting on the wall. Yes, they ultimately destroyed it. And but I then started Novita, and Novita means new birth, new life, always something new. Another fun fact: there's a restaurant. I'll give them a plug. It's on Park Avenue and 33rd, I believe, and it's called Novita. And I was doing the IBS trade show, beauty show in New York at the Javits Center. And I was having a dinner with a friend who lived in that Gramercy Park area. And we were walking down the street. And in those days, they didn't even have an awning. Today they do. And but the menu looked good. You know how outside there's all menus in front of restaurants. And I went in with my friend, and we had a wonderful dinner. And initially, though, I said, what is the name of this restaurant? And she goes, Novita. I said, oh, what does that mean? She goes, something new.
Nice.
And so I took the matches. And as a marketer, you're always pulling.
Yep.
And I saved that. And so when I was beginning again, I thought, that is very appropriate, not only for beginning again, but also for skincare. New birth, new life, always. And so I have been building and evolving this skincare line, Novita Spa Clinicals, as we call it, because they are result oriented. The reason I tagged the spa word on was because from a trade name, I couldn't have just gotten Novita, as I shared with you. There's others. And also, I was competing initially with myself with Glycolique. So I wanted to connote that it was skincare. And then I put on the word clinicals to let the world know that it was result oriented.
I love it. Megan, unfortunately, we got about 11 minutes left. I mean,
Okay.
this has been amazing. And again, just like I told Dawn, I find that, maybe in, 3 to 5, 6 weeks, if your time allows, I'd love to have you back on because there's just so much here. But like I said, we have about 10 minutes left now.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we get in what you want to talk about. So
Yes.
now we're up to.
I'm there. I can
Yeah.
help. I can close it up.
Yep.
So,
Novita.
yeah. So basically, the product line for years was sold through wholesale beauty distributors. Then the world, then of course there's now websites and Google started happening like your world, building SEO. My first URL was in '98, one of the pioneers of URLs. But I said to myself, I'm in Fort Worth, Texas, traveling throughout the United States, and building this brand. And I could see change also in the industry happening. And so I said, it's time to do a flagship spa and medical spa, because I was also consulting by this time, Ron, with docs who were starting medical spas. So
Wow.
I started consulting already. And so I said, I'm going to start a spa, which will be the training center, so to speak. My warehouse was large enough to create a training facility as well. But then God stepped in and moved the furniture. And it's a long story. It's in my book, which I'll reference later, but in a minute. But I saw Georgetown, Texas, which is about 20 miles north of Austin, Texas. And it's right on 35. It's a beautiful little town, historic square, and something resonated in me. And I started doing market research, demographic study, and I saw that this was a better fit, but it also had a family component, which is too long of a story. And so I came to Georgetown, Texas as an esthetician. I got my license, an aesthetic license in the early 90s and in the state of Texas. So I started by myself in one room, guys, built it to, I came up to the square in 2005 and did 3 rooms in another business, and then took the space that we're in currently, which is about 4,000 square feet, the Novita Spa and Medical Rejuvenation Clinic, which is, so basically built it, started small. Remember, I learned,
Yes.
start small and go big.
Nice.
Learn my lesson. And so then the pandemic happened. I have had a lot of challenges, but I've never had to close my door. And I said, I'm not going to go dark. And I got dressed every day,
Yep.
went down to the spa. And as long as FedEx was in business, I was in business. And people did curbside and bought gift cards curbside. But I also started my live called Unique Leaders Live, as well as a Monday, Motivation Monday. And then I started doing something with the staff to keep them connected, because of course they were not there. And that we called that the pop-up shop. And so we just started creating energy. And during that season, I started a new URL. And because I'm working on a course for the industry, as well as I wrote a book last year and published it in December on Amazon, and went to #1 on Amazon January 4th. And it's called
Wow.
And Possibilities Just Over the Horizon. It's never too early or too late to create the life of your dreams. And so it's now free on our website, but I'll go there in a
Wait a
second.
minute, that was a mic drop moment,
Okay.
That was a mic drop moment. You got to learn to pause, all right?
Well, you said I have only a few minutes, so I wanted to get in all the points.
You're down to, we're down to like 4, but that's amazing. So you didn't stop. You're still going. You've got a course. Now I heard another sad statistic about estheticians. I believe that isn't something like 95% of them after a few years aren't even in that field anymore.
That is correct, Ron. It's a dreadful statistic, because the education, the board that I took in 91 is the same board they're taking today. This is not just Texas, this is national. So I built this business, again, team. I share, you do not build a business, you build people, and people build your business.
Nice.
And so I have what I call the master's program that, again, is part of this course. And the course is $1 million spa master's program.
Nice.
And so that is almost finished, and that will be on this new website that we have kind of the landing page done, but it's being evolved. And of course, the products, the Novita Spa clinical products, are alive and well, sold all over the United States. But on March 31st, a gentleman knocked on the door. I had just finished one of the podcasts with the girls, the staff, and he knocked on the door. I thought he wanted a gift card, possibly. Opened it, and he said, would you have any interest in talking to me about selling me your business? And so I said, I think you need to come in. And so 6 feet apart, but he came in and we started our dialogue. And on June 2nd, I closed and sold the brick and mortar, just the brick and mortar, not the products, not the trade name.
Nice.
And so they live on, and the brick and mortar and the master's program that I built in Georgetown, Texas. And then in April, I was awarded by Austin Women Magazine the Women's Way Award. I was nominated. I didn't win, but I was nominated in the product innovation category. Wow, what a great way to close.
Megan, this is amazing. What an amazing history you have. And there is so much for people to listen and learn from. I mean, just listening to your journey, the furniture being put in the way, and then how you navigated around that. I'm also looking forward. For people, could you say the name of your book again, please?
Yes, it is Hope and Possibilities Just Over the Horizon. It's never too early or too late to create the life of your dreams.
Boom.
Never.
Pause. We just drop the mic, let that settle, because that's beautiful and it's so true. And people just like 3 Feet from Gold and stickability. When Greg Reed comes up, I love how you tied it all together, because oftentimes people will quit right before the magic happens, or they won't start. So, I mean, I guess it really was, very surprising why you came in here. But you have an online course coming out. You still have your products. You have a book that's out there. So this is amazing. So the learning, the teaching, and the opportunities to continue learning from your major successes. And it's never easy. I mean, you're going back 70s, 80s, 90s for a female business owner in New York, of all places. Forget about it, right? You know what I mean? It's such a, a different environment. And there was no internet and all these different things about it, and you still made it happen, but you still kept the foundation of building a team, serving, and everybody's success will create your success, duplication, and I love it, man. You're really you belong in the lineup. You actually called me or texted me. You really think I should? No, you fit. Believe me, man. You're in like such a unique, distinct category. I'm grateful for your time and grateful to be working with you on some of your projects. So in closing, we literally have like a minute and a half. Is there anything else you'd like to say? I'm putting up your website so people will know how to get in touch with you. Plus your name has been on the whole time.
I would just like to share, as Greg Reed gets ready to come on with you, Ron, that in my Unique Leaders Live, I close by asking every guest. I share about 3 Feet from Gold, give a little history, and share the success formula. But I say then share with our listeners and our viewers, what is your passion and what is your talent? So it is so joyful for me to be here on this panel with Don Green, oh my goodness, Greg Reed, Sharon Lecter,
nice.
and Don Shin. I'm just so blessed, and I thank everyone for viewing with Ron and I today, and I look forward to working with you in whatever capacity.
Nice. Megan, this video is going to go up on YouTube, throughout social media, but in the description, if you could, because I wanted to ask you, but we just ran out of time, 3 tips that you could give an entrepreneur or business owner, somebody who's either in business or wants to be in business. 3 tips, and then I will send that to me in an email, and then I will include that in the description. So viewers, please make sure you read the description, and you're gonna, it's amazing when you have an opportunity opportunity to listen and learn to, serious pioneers and icons in various industries like we've put forth for you